Trust me, there's no one that hates certain things more than I do. The 80s can just f off. The snare drum sounds in the 80s should be banned. The more people are doing more things with music, the world is better. Hello everyone, welcome to this video. And before I start saying anything, thank you so much for watching the last mix video. It's been up at the time of this recording for only 24 hours so far, and it's had well over 2,000 views by now, which in 24 hours with something as niche as me sitting here mixing some songs, I think is absolutely phenomenal. So for everyone that watched it and commented and all of that, thank you very much. I'm going to go through some of your comments on my last videos in this video. I think there's some things that people have put that are actually worth answering in a kind of a wider audience. So yeah, I've screenshot them all, so excuse me looking at my phone. Daniel Rivera says, I can't believe you're sharing the multi-track files of some of your songs. So super generous. I would love the opportunity to make something that I don't normally get my hands on. I think this song is amazing, by the way. Well, thank you for the compliment for the song. I really enjoyed that. This was on the Alone Intertwined video where I was mixing that. I want to do this. In fact, I want this to become a standard. I enjoy music better when I have it in multi-track. You know, I listen to songs and I think that's a really nice song, but that snare sound is awful and I can't listen to this song. And I'd like to be able to buy that song. I mean, because I, you know, like in the old days when you buy albums, physical CDs, I'd like to kind of buy a song and have it in multi-track and be able to tweak things to my taste. Now, I realise I'm weird and I'm obsessive, but I think there's something, people love the music more when they know all the parts that make up and they can get their hands on it and listen to, and also listen to all the little mistakes as well. This is the thing, is I'm not putting out multi-tracks that are perfect, okay? The mix in its entirety, generally, by the time I've finished messing around with it, sounds good and I'm proud of it, but there's tons of imperfections in that stuff, and I think people need to know how imperfect music should be to sound perfect. And I think all of these things, I could go on for ages with all the little things that you can learn, but I've been given loads of multi-track over the years. Someone gave me Bohemian Rhapsody years ago, which obviously I can't put out because it's not mine, but just turning all those faders up and listening to all the individual sounds, it gives you a whole new appreciation for the music and for the song. So for me, I think it's really important that people put out multi-tracks as well as mixes. And I've heard people kind of say, well, what if someone then takes your multi-track and does a mix and it doesn't sound bad, it doesn't sound good, you know, isn't that going to be embarrassing? It's like, well, no, not at all. It's like, the more people are doing more things with music, the world is better. I don't give a shit if there's a song of mine out there and someone's done a mix where the vocals are too loud or the drum sound's not as good or whatever. You know, I can have my mix, someone else can do their mix, and they might do a better mix later on. It's the world. Life is too short to worry about those things. Just put stuff out there in every way you can, and then you actually kind of, you know, we're getting a scene going on here now where people are downloading the multi-tracks. I'm being sent. In fact, I was tagged in a video the other day, a French guy that mixed again. And he has a GoPro on his head. I'll link to his video in this description. He has a GoPro on his head and he's mixing in his studio a song that I'd done the video for and given away the multi-track to. And I just watched it and I was so happy. And he was like, oh, I hope you don't mind. It's like I opened up Instagram and instantly it was in my face. I thought, oh, I'm hearing my song coming back. And he's, oh, that's a nice bit of gear he's got. That's what I love about this. So I'm really passionate about giving away the multi-tracks when I can, because I'm a computer guy, I'm a software guy. And I love open source software. I love the principles of open source software. And I kind of want to bring the principles of that kind of open source software mentality to multi-track and to audio. So if you know what I'm talking about, great. If you don't, doesn't really matter. Just download the multi-track, do your mix. I'm more than happy for you to do anything you want with it. Someone said, can I mix one of them and use it in my portfolio to get customers? Do it. I don't care what you do. Just put it up. And not that it's required, I don't care if you don't, but just out of courtesy, please tag me. I'd love to hear your mixes and stuff like that. But even if you don't, I'm not saying you absolutely have to. As far as I'm concerned, it's open source and it's out there. Right, I'm going to move on to the next one. Otherwise, I'll be ranting for hours about that. But I'm very passionate about that, as you can see. Right, Yeah, so this guy, hey man, is it okay if I download the Multitrack and use this song for my mixing portfolio? Give you full credit, of course. And I said, of course you can. It's free to use. Just send me the copy of the mix. So that's that one. So I'm not going to read this whole comment here. It's a long comment, but basically he said, out of the 2 process versions, this was my me versus auto align video where we were discussing what sounded better, the auto align plugin or me aligning manually. Out of the 2 process versions, the manual alignment was better as it retained a better stereo image. Thank you very much. I thought it was as well. However, I personally favoured the drums with no alignment at all. While in some cases it can be necessary to align drums on an unsatisfactory recording, I find that aligning drums creates more issues with the stereo image. So a point I want to make about this, he had a wonderful thing and he said my mixes sounded great and whatever worked for me, which I agree. At the end of the day, what works for one person might not work for another. I'm not obsessive about aligning absolutely everything. I did align absolutely everything in that video because that was the experiment. It's like, how does auto align stand up to me aligning it and getting it as perfect as possible? And in reality, I don't align everything absolutely to the you know, I will get the room mics aligned to each other and maybe I will align them to the snare, but then I will push them back a bit so that it does have room to breathe, 20 milliseconds, 30 milliseconds, you know. And am I going to, if I'm gating the toms, am I going to align the toms to the snare because I'm not getting snare bleed through the top? Probably not. You know, the things that are really important is if you've got 2 kick mics, sorry, bass drum mics. I hate the word kick drum. It's a bass drum, but anyway, people call it kick. So you've got 2 bass drum mics. Yeah, I've got to align them, otherwise you're going to have phase problems. 2 snare drum mics. Yeah, I'm going to align them because they'll have phase problems. Overheads, I would want to align to the snare, otherwise you're going to lose a certain amount of punch, a certain amount of bottom end. But when it comes to room mics and toms and other bits, and aligning the bass drum to the snare drum, particularly if they're gated, you know, I don't bother with all of it. That wasn't the point of the video. The point of the video was to do total alignment, me doing it, versus total alignment, auto align doing it. So again, don't get me wrong, even when I've used auto aligns in other videos, I've often let auto align do its thing and then I've pushed the room mics by 20 or 30 milliseconds. And I realise I just haven't said that. On my last mix video of Alone Intertwine, I did delay the room mics. I think it was by 30 milliseconds once I'd aligned them. So there are things I forget to say and the videos go on long enough. So it's great that that point was brought up and I completely agree with you. Totally aligned drums all the time do not sound fantastic. That wasn't the point, but thanks for that comment. It was completely right and well observed. So here's another comment on the Alone Intertwined video, which is the last mix I did, and it's a comment about the drumming. So it says, it would be such a great song if the drumming weren't so all over the place and unnecessarily too much. A more humble, laid back feel would have served some more justice to the song. Now, I'm going to hold my hands up at this. I mean, whether you like the drums on it or you don't like the drums, that's personal taste. And I have no problem with that at all. There's plenty of things that I can't stand that other people really like and vice versa. So I take no kind of malice in that comment. The drums weren't his taste. What I do want to do is hold my hands up that was, if you call it a fault, that was my fault, not Andres, the guy that played the drums' fault. I'd programmed the drums on the demo and had way over the tops of, I like that sort of Ian Pace, Mitch Mitchell sort of, where it's just rolling and it's like someone's throwing a drum kit down the stairs all the time and there's fills over everything and it's going crazy. I really like that style thing. And I'd program these drums which were even more over the top than what Andres ended up doing. And he heard my program and said, well, I can't do that. I mean, that's just... So he kind of pulled it back a bit, but I was pushing, yeah, keep going, make it exciting. For me, I loved that drum track. The reason I'm saying that is because I don't want someone to think that Andres, has no taste or whatever. He was doing what I wanted him to do, and I wrote the song. So he was, being a perfectly good drummer, good little drummer, and doing as the producer says. So if you don't like the drums on that, which I've only had one person comment on that, but that's my fault, not Andres' fault. Andres is a fabulous drummer, and I wouldn't want him to take any blame for what you consider not perfect drums, basically. So I'm holding my hands up. Saying that, I really like them. So, I'm not apologising for it because that's the way I wanted the drums, and that's the way they ended up. A good comment, don't get me wrong. Just because it disagrees with me on something, and he did at the end of it say, "Love your videos, by the way. You're a great guy and I appreciate what you're doing. Cheers." I don't have a problem with people disagreeing, or if you don't like one of my songs or you think something sounds crap, you know, I'm not going to cry about it. I'm 45 years old. I've done this for way too many years to worry about. People have different opinions. There's things that I hate that other people love, and that's absolutely fine. But I thought I'd bring that up just because sometimes you might hear a drum track or a guitar track or something think, God, that sounds awful, and you don't know the circumstance. It might be that the writer or the producer or whoever made them play like that, and that's not the way they usually play. And if you don't think it's automatically the player that did that, and that's why it sounds bad. Still got my hoodie on because I've been out for lunch with my mum. We went to a Mexican restaurant in Orpington, which I really like. It's called Fiesta Mexicana, and it does the best ribs I've ever had. They're not paying me to say that, but if you're ever anywhere near Orpington, which hopefully you never will be, but if you do, go to Fiesta Mexicana and have their ribs because they are amazing. Anyway, where was I? Someone said, great song. They're not writing it like that anymore. Thank you very much. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing a lot of EDM stuff on YouTube and whatever, and I'm quite pleased that I'm bringing all my old rock stuff back. So there we go. Sean Riley, my good friend Sean Riley, who runs Computer File, says, listening to this mix and it sounds spectacular on my Sony XM5s. The clarity is wonderful and the Hammonds are beautiful. I don't know the Sony XM5s. They're clearly headphones, but thank you very much, Sean. Someone here, I love this one. The song is good, the vocals are good, the instrumentation is pretty awful, shrill, thin. Again, it's an opinion. I disagree. I really like the sound of that. The only place I would agree with you a little bit, which I did tweak actually before I ran it off, was I felt the guitars were a little bit too loud and they had a little bit too much top end in them. So in the Alone Intertwined video, when you listen through to the mix, you're actually hearing the mix before I finally ran it off. The other thing to consider on these things is I'm not mastering this stuff, I'm mixing this stuff, and then I put it into DaVinci Resolve because I'm copying my 15 and 16 out of my right desk. And when I'm putting it out, I bring the level up a bit because I know that YouTube are going to basically bring the level up and then they'll apply their own dynamic compression. If they're going to do that, I'd rather apply my own for you so that I at least have some control over how it's going to sound on YouTube. But it always sounds a little bit, you know, roll off the bottom, roll off the top. It's not as perfect on YouTube as I'd like, really, audio-wise. And I do put kind of a final limiter in DaVinci Resolve just to kind of bring it up. Maybe it tickles it at the most by 1 dB on the absolute maximum transients. And I'm only doing that to stop YouTube destroying it. I'd rather destroy it myself in a controlled way. But other than that, you know, I'm not EQing things on the way out. So a mix, when it's up on the desk, might have a bit too much sub. It might have a bit too much of that kind of, particularly I think things gather around 3K and things gather, you know, in that kind of like 12K and above, it can get a little bit harsh. And usually on mastering, those things get rounded out. So what you're listening to are unmastered mixes. So bear that in mind. But you know, everyone has different opinions. I didn't mind that comment. Someone saying the vocals are good, the instrumentation is pretty awful, shrill and thin. And then someone came in and defended me and said, I don't know what this guy's on about. It's an opinion. It's art. As I said to the guy, nothing bad. I mean, he's a public subscriber. I can't say that, can I? He's a public subscriber of mine. And he's watched loads of other videos and commented on other things. And as I said, well, if you don't like the sound of it, download the multitrack yourself and do your own mix. That's why I'm giving the multitrack away. If you don't like what I've done, do something else. All good. I sounded more angry there than I should have done. I'm not angry. I'm just passionate about people doing what they want with their music. Because trust me, there's no one that hates certain things more than I do. The 80s can just fuck off. The snare drum sounds in the 80s should be banned, right? And every time I hear a good song from the 80s that's ruined by a really shit gated reverb, I just can't bear it and I want to turn it off. So I wish I could get those songs and mix them so the drums sounded more organic. And then someone else will go, oh, I like that 80s reverb. That's their opinion. I'm ranting too much. Right, let's carry on. So my memories from Rogue Studios video, I had someone here comment saying, I remember how the CRT monitors used to flicker when a train went over there because we were in a railway arch. they were the days. And actually, I'd forgotten about that till that was mentioned, because, you know, we kind of switched away from CRT monitors around 2001. So talking about that Rogue video where I was doing the Rogue stories and how I got involved in Rogue Studios, if you haven't seen that, watch that. I really enjoyed doing that video. But I had some old customers reach out. Brad Stewart. I haven't seen Brad for years. He was the drummer in a band called The Turns. I'm going to do, I think, a whole blog about recording them, because I recorded them so much and I loved them. Their vocals were amazing. They had great songs. Simple songs, all of them, but they were all really functional players. They played with passion. The songs were great. The harmonies were great. And I really want to find a couple of their old songs, bring them up on the desk and do something like that. But he said, absolutely love this, Dave, to my video talking about Rogue. Rogue Studios was a huge part of my life. What a place it was. We had some great times under that railway arch. Looking forward to the next video. So cheers for reaching out, Brad. Love hearing these things. Mike from Texas says, what a great narrative story. Really fills in some of the blanks for me. John Paul's your friend from Germany, right? Yes, he is. Someone else that I don't know the name of saying, Dave, this was a fantastic video. Absolutely love the details of the story. Incredible memories. Thank you so much for sharing. So that makes it worthwhile. I was a little bit apprehensive at first to do these talk in front of the camera videos. While I'm mixing, you know, I'll do a bit of talking in between, and I've got various videos where my face isn't even on the screen. It's the idea of talking to the camera like this I'm still getting used to, but I think I actually crossed a threshold with that one where I told the story about how I got involved in Rogue Studios, and I really enjoyed telling it, and I actually enjoyed editing it and watching it back, and thought, okay, maybe I could do a few more of these. So again, thank you for all your comments on that. And I know some people like them. In fact, Anne Blair says here, love it, more like this, please, Dave, especially for those of us that are not technically minded. Cocky and confident, though, don't see it. I definitely was. I'm sure she's being sarcastic. Right, okay, here was a really interesting comment, which I didn't think was bad in any way, and I did answer, on my which was the best drum bus compressor video. And someone said, nice sounds, although this is kind of all over the place. You've got about 7 dB of gain reduction going on the Bus Plus, then about 3 dB in the 172A, and then you're putting at least 20 dB of gain reduction in the Bluey. Okay, and I can totally see on first watching, and probably badly explained by me, why that looked like it was all over the place. But I'm now going to defend my position on that one. Okay, so if I'm putting a compressor over the insert point on the first desk, as a drum bus compressor, right? I'm not necessarily having anything that's going to attenuate or boost the gain on the way in, other than turning up and down the faders on the desk. And I don't want to do that. Once I've kind of got the drums in place there, unless I run like the UV-EQ before, which has got the trim to be able to send more level in and out, which, to be fair, I would do. I wanted to test what the compressors could do without any of that. And my point with the Blueys was that even with the input gain down to the lowest they could be, it was still way too much, because they've got that 6 dB boost. Now, if I wanted to use them and wanted that sound, I'd put the UV EQ before it and I'd trim it down and I'd match up the same amount of gain reduction or whatever as the other units. And yeah, they'd be perfectly usable, but that wasn't the point for the videos. Like, on their own, they were doing way too much gain reduction with a normal level going in. So I don't see them as good drum bus compressors for that reason. But as a parallel bus, they're great. Now, I get that he was saying at times there was 7 dB of gain reduction on the Bus Plus versus 3 or 4 or whatever on the 2As. And again, I did say in that video, I wasn't trying to match the compressors to be the same as each other. What I was doing was saying, this is a compressor. If I put it on the drum bus, what would I do to make it sound good? Now, some compressors only start to sound good when they're absolutely being slammed, and you don't really hear the compression because of the attack and release. You don't hear as much compression as the needle's showing you. Okay, and then other compressors, it can look like it's tickling 1-2 dB, and you can hear loads of stuff going on. So I wasn't trying to do a test of let's try and get all of these compressors to sound the same and have the same amount of compression. And then what I was doing is, if I was using this compressor, what would I dial in? And this is what I dial in. And on some, it means you're slamming it, and on some, you're just tickling it. Okay, and that's how I would use that compressor. And then I ran all of those off, and then I wanted to compare and see what the sounds were like, because there's no point in me comparing the 2As with 20 dB of gain reduction if I'm never going to use them like that, just because another compressor I would use with 20 dB of gain reduction. Although I get the point there that it wasn't a scientific test in terms of like putting test tones through and getting exactly the same amount of gain reduction, blah, blah, blah. That wasn't why I was doing it. I just wanted to get to know my compressors on drums, and I wanted to hear what they sounded like, and I was sharing that with you. And my methodology was, well, let's just do whatever I do and hear what they sound like. And something good came out of that, because I was using the Alone Intertwined drums, and I thought, oh, those 2As sound really nice on that drum kit for that song. The Bus Plus was punchier, and I'd used the Bus Plus in more areas, but the 2As sounded really good in that context, and I ended up using them in that mix and was really happy with that mix. So as far as I'm concerned, that was a worthwhile experiment. Paul Annis said, great video, dude. I quite fancy a Bus Plus unit. Well, I fancy a second Bus Plus unit, so I don't blame you at all. Are the LEDs on the Bus Plus as bright as they seem to be in the video? They are bright. I'm not saying they're not bright, but with video, you know, you're trying to squash this much dynamic range into this much dynamic range in terms of brightness. So things that are bright can appear way more glowing than they are in real life, and that's video and audio have the same kind of things in dynamic range problems. So Bus Plus sounds the best to me. Yes, I agree with that. Someone, YouTube Videos 415, said, there was not the slightest difference. All the drums sound exactly the same. Fair enough. That's how you feel. I completely disagree. Love the music you're working with. I need a loop of that playing 24 hours a day in the background of my life. From Steve Lato, my good friend Steve Lato. Thank you, Steve. And thank you, Steve, for all your help with my channel. He's been advising me on a few bits and pieces, because he's got, like, I don't know, 500,000, 700,000, something like that, subscribers, and he's been doing it years. So, yeah, shout out to Steve Lato. Thank you very much, Steve. You're a constant resource of useful information. And I do love his legal videos, so if you like the law, go and check out his channel. I will link it below. Scam comment. Thank you so much for this amazing video. Just a quick off-topic question. I have a SafePower wallet with USDT, and of the seed phrase, mistake turkey blossom warfare blade until bachelor. All squeeze today, flea guitar. Okay, how should I go about transferring them to Binance? Clearly someone's trying to scam someone there with that comment. That's not a real comment in any way. So I said I'd try adding some 8K using a shelving EQ and some mild saturation. Don't clip the signal though, as crypto is EQ and you don't want it going out of phase. So I've replied to your bollocks with some more bollocks. So there we go. Someone said the manual alignment. This is my auto align versus me video. The manual alignment sounded much better. Auto align sounded a little bit off in this instance. Yes, and it did sound a little bit off. And I think the reason it sounded a little bit off is because it was using the tom, the first tom, as the thing to kind of center the kit around, which I never would have done. I always would have done it by the snare drum. So I think auto align, I'd like it to say, I'd like an option in the software to be able to go align everything to this, and I think that would have improved it a hell of a lot more. It didn't do a good job in that video. It did a worse job in that video, and I didn't pick it for that reason. Yeah, but it just did a worse job in that video than other times I've used it, so I was probably unduly harsh. But which brings me on to this comment here from Home Recording Made Easy, and that is a channel, well, not that specific channel, but another one that he does where he's mixing an analog on his Origin console. I actually watched that channel, and he said, funny, I did not any difference. I assume he meant hear any difference. Funny, I did not hear any difference between the manual and the auto line tracks. Maybe it's a YouTube thing. It sounded pretty identical to me. I've actually listened on YouTube through my monitors quite a bit, and I don't think they sound identical. I think what's happening is everything's being timed around that tom mic, and because of that, because it's kind of being centered around the toms, the snare is actually happening in the rooms before it's happening in the snare mic. So you get this kind of pre-slapback delay thing happening in stereo, and to me it just sounded awful. And there's this kind of woo in the snare that was coming out woo every time it was hit, and it just sounded horrible with auto align, yet my manual alignment didn't do it. So I heard quite a massive difference, but I don't know what you were listening to, and you might not have been in your studio, so no disrespect to you. I watched this guy's videos and they're very good. In fact, he's one of the reasons that I wanted it. I was like, oh, I definitely want to get an Origin console. And Chris and Tom Lord Algie have got Origin consoles as well. So when I'm over in America, I'm going to try and pop round to one of their studios and see see whether I can look at it and have a go. And if I like it, I might have to buy one. I will be in America later this year, so you never know. Warren Hewitt from Produce Like a Pro says, huge congratulations for playing the Royal Albert Hall. That is amazing. Well, thank you for seeing the video, Warren. And we've never met. I don't know Warren. We are friends on Facebook, and I have done some animation work for a channel that he was involved in, but that wasn't via him. That was asked for by someone else that knows him. So I don't know Warren, but it's lovely to get a message from him, because I have been watching him for a long time, and hopefully when I'm next in California, if we're doing a show near him, he's welcome. So Warren, if you see this, shout us up. I'll put you on the guest list. And the final comment I'm going to read out, which was not about me, it was about my old studio, Rogue, said, my band did our first demo at Rogue, age 16. I think it was about 1997 to 98-ish. I remember the engineer, who was JP, that's John Paul, who told rather inappropriate jokes. Well, that does sound like him. And I was, 98, 97, I probably was going there as a customer and recording. 98, I think that's when I did, end of 98, I did my first session. So you just missed me as the engineer, which is either a good or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. But in general, I just want to say thank you for all your support that you've shown on this channel, listening to my waffling, listening to my music, and going through these with me. I'm not going to just be doing my music. I want to encourage other bands to give away their multi-track, you know, artists, bands, whoever. Send me your stuff. I'd love to mix it on a stream. I really, really would. And I also would encourage you, I'm not going to force you to, and it's not like I won't mix it if you don't, but I really, really do encourage people. I want you to give away the multi-track. See it as giving something back for education. Then other people can enjoy the work and listen to all the details and all the bits you put into a song, and they'll appreciate you more as an artist if you give them the multi-track than if you just give them a finished song. Because most people just get the finished song. They don't know all the details and all the hard work that's gone into it. So, you know, give it all away. Give all the drafts, all the little bits, all the extra takes, all the stuff like that. Let's make this a normal thing to just give away multi-track with the songs, you know? I think it's really important to do. Anyway, enough waffling from me. Please like, please leave me more comments, please subscribe, please share my videos far and wide, please download the multi-track, do mixes, tag me, send them to me, all of that stuff, and I will see you in another video. Goodbye.